Hello, Vermilion High School staff. This is Stacy Badkey, and today I'm going to talk to you about an exciting topic called Ferpa. And Ferpa is, I'm sure, something that you've all heard of before, but it's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act is a federal law that protects the confidentiality of student education records. So who has rights over these education records? The parents are granted rights on behalf of their children. FERPA generally requires written parental or eligible student consent before an education agency, such as a district or institution, such as a school, discloses student education records and the personally identifiable information, known as the PII. And then rights are transferred to students once they turn 18 years of age or attend a post-secondary institution. So a couple things I want to go over before we continue. What are education records? So what do these parents have rights to? The records that are directly related to the student. So any records that the school keeps on file. So for example, a cumulative file that would be directly related to the student, so that would be an education record. Also, the education records are maintained by the educational agency, district, or institution. And then what is personally identifiable information? This includes direct identifiers of the students and indirect identifiers that can be constituted as personally identifiable information. So direct identifiers are such things like the student's name, address, student social security number, any way that you can directly find that student. Indirect identifiers would be student's place of birth. Some schools have their birth certificates on file, although you may not require this of students, but that can be an indirect identifier. Also, students' mother's maiden name would be another indirect identifier. So who has access to the education records? If you are deemed a school official, you are permitted to have access to education records as long as you have legitimate educational interest in those education records. So who are these school officials? Here's a list, but it's not limited to the following people: teachers, principals, counselors, president, board members, trustees, registrars, administrative assistants, attorney, accountant, human resources personnel, information systems specialists, and support or clerical personnel. Again, it's not limited to these people, but these are just a few of the school officials that do have access to those records. Now, some people and some research is saying that schools could be violating FERPA by using surveillance cameras. So this is one thing I want to go over to make sure that you know Vermilion School District is not violating the FERPA laws. So some questions that are asked in regards to surveillance cameras: is it appropriate to disclose surveillance footage to parents of a student injured in a fight? Should footage be disclosed in response to media and other public inquiries? Are there special concerns about allowing law enforcement live feed access? So just to answer a couple of those, schools should notify the school community through policy that cameras are located throughout the building and their images can be captured. Another thing to consider: audio surveillance should require postage, signage to notify individuals that conversations may be recorded. But first, school administrators should consult with legal counsel. So in case law enforcement needs to get involved, individuals do know that their audio was recorded. Parent access to surveillance recordings If the recording is directly related to the student, FERPA allows parents access. If there's more than one student in the recording, they're still allowed to see it as long as the other students are blurred out. If they are not blurred out, all parents can gather together to view the recording, but FERPA does allow parents to have access to these surveillance recordings. Law enforcement access to surveillance recordings. Parents must give consent in order for law enforcement to have access to any type of recordings. So bottom line for schools to not be violating FERPA with cameras, they need to develop and publish policies describing the purpose of surveillance cameras. So our school needs to have something in writing that describes why we are using these surveillance cameras. We need to make sure that we install cameras only in areas where individuals have a low expectation of privacy. We need to notify all school community of the use of these cameras. We need to consult with our legal counsel prior to enabling audio recording. We need to establish protocols for maintaining equipment. We need to consult with the family policy compliance offices, frequently asked questions, and we need to develop protocols governing requests for disclosure, including the handling of requests for copies. So we need to basically have a policy regarding surveillance cameras in the school. So how do we ensure our school is FERPA compliant? First, we need to have awareness. We need to make sure our staff is aware of all of FERPA's laws and know it's your duty to comply to those laws. We need to confirm that FERPA applies to our school, in which it does. It is stated in our school board policy manual. 3, we need to know the rights, protections, and exceptions. This is, again, the responsibility of our employees at the school to learn, understand, and comply, and that all data exists in the education records, so we need to comply with FERPA. Number 4, we need to train our staff members. So we are going to have yearly staff trainings on FERPA to make sure we are complying with the most recent current laws. Number 5, we need to implement compliant policies and procedures. For example, shredding all old documents, develop data breach response plans, and prohibit emailing private data. Number 6, encrypt files and emails. So if we have encrypted files, they cannot be accessed without a decryption key. So this adds an extra layer of protection for our school employees in case of property being stolen, such as a computer or a laptop or an iPad. If we have encrypted files, this will help protect us. And number 7, implementing other prevention tools. So just making sure that we have things in order before we make decisions on FERPA. And how can we stay vigilant? We can carefully screen vendors and online vendors, making sure that these third parties comply with FERPA. And then know when to release and withhold records, and be cautious about what you tell to whom. So before you share any information, please consult with administration and or our superintendent, or refer to our school board policy manual, and it will help you determine when, what, and to whom of what you're telling people, so we can stay in compliance with FERPA. And that is everything that I have today. Here's a list of the references that I used. Thank you.